Hey, it's a new week, and we're going to be dealing with the word that you've probably heard a whole lot in your life. We're going to break it down. That word is no, right? As Austin Powers says it, no. We're going to talk about no, and is maybe better than no? Is it worse than no? How about no? So all week, we're going to talk about that word no and what it really means. Today, we're going to start with maybe. All that and more in episode 820 of today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom.
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
I'm wound up.
I guess.
I like it. We got a late start today, so I got my coffee has taken effect.
Fair enough. Yes. Apologies to our live viewers who are catching us a little bit later than usual. Typical.
Apologies to our dead viewers as well, Tom. You know, we don't discriminate.
Well, fair. I was differentiating between those who were listening to the podcast who don't know that we are quote unquote late. It's just something else. So
I was going a different direction for comedic effect.
I got it. I did get that. You didn't even have to say, do you see what I did there?
I thought you might. It's Monday.
Yes.
And lots of people are going, no.
I am sure that there is a lot of that. Although, in some ways, what would the alternative be for them? And would that be any quote unquote
click
better?
Next podcast? Really simple.
Fair enough. All right. So, good morning and welcome to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast, where each day we dive into a conversation. My dog's not very happy.
It sounds in the background like bad things are happening.
Sounds like it's saying, no, don't leave.
That's it. We've got sound effects for this week.
We do. Excellent. So we have a conversation around a topic, and as Bob mentioned, this week's topic is dealing with no. And we'll dive into that deeply each day with a little bit different twist on each day. And as we're having that conversation, we encourage you to share your thoughts and ideas, because we know that it'll add value to the show. It's going to be different than what Bob and I have to share, and it may have an impact on how the show goes. So please feel free to share your thoughts and ideas. At the end of the conversation, Bob and I will each offer our one thing, our today's antidote, that thing that we hope will help you figure out if you've been getting no's and it's getting you stuck, uncertain, really not sure what to do next, or just lacking a little bit of confidence to go out there again. Hopefully we'll help you figure out how to take your next step so that you can keep moving along your own unique pathway to success. And of course, if you have a one thing, we would welcome you to share that as well. Before, though, we dive into that conversation, each day, Bob and I start off with our celebration. So, Bob, what are you celebrating today?
Tom, you know I like a good small business owner taking on the big dog story, right? It's not a customer service story. No. I'm going a different direction today. I think I'm going where you're going to go. So today, if I understand correctly, one of our listeners, followers, Michael Kintner, is taking on GoPro in the legal battle that's been running for over 8 years. And this is a complicated, I couldn't even begin to. Basically, my understanding is Michael and his company alleges that GoPro took his technology. And as I understand it, the courts are going to resolve that matter. And this is far bigger than a simple one-on-one. This is there are some serious legal issues here that need to be resolved. And as a small business owner, you know, sometimes we get into these situations where we find ourselves fighting bigger companies. So my celebration today is that Michael stuck it out for 8.5 years. He's finally getting his day in court, and that's good for all of us. One of the great things about our American system of capitalism and the legal system is that you can actually go to court and have these things resolved by presumably objective people. And Michael, with you today, thinking about you and thoughts. Hopefully it goes your way.
I would agree. It's exactly where I was going to go. I knew this was coming up, and he's done everything he can do. The results are going to be out of his control, so he'll just have to. And I understand how challenging that would be if he gets the results he doesn't desire, and yet all he can do is keep doing what he's doing. So good luck to Michael today, and we'll be hoping for a result that is beneficial for him.
I think it's going to run all week, at least, as I understand it.
I would imagine.
Yeah. So, which is probably even more stressful.
Sure.
Yeah. So
in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So this is that Al Roker pivot, turning to less serious things, the weather. But we're gonna shift into our discussion about no, dealing with no, and it's funny. We've gotten the word no thrown at us from the time we were little babies. And I was thinking about it this morning before we started, the whole idea that, the no phase with kids, which is so much fun when they're like 1.5, 2 years old, and they just start using the word no. What, is it younger?
Well, you use the phrase so much fun. And it might be fun from the outside watching this little child play with that. When you are the parents,
I wouldn't know anything about that.
It's not the same. It doesn't have the same impact, I don't think.
Well, as an uncle, I can tell you it was fun because, you go through a series of things where I'd say, no, do you want this? No, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want a big ice cream sundae? And they'd say, no. I'm like, really? You don't want an ice cream sundae? Yes. So as an uncle, that was always fun.
Yes,
as a parent, I can imagine it would be a little stressful. But we get conditioned at a very early age to respond unfavorably to the word no. It is real negative. And I think one of the things I've had to learn in my sales career is that no is not the end of the world. And as we're talking today about no versus maybe, I used to think that no was just the absolute worst thing in the world. Like, oh, you're kidding me. Now I think that no is, it brings clarity to the situation. And at least there's a straightforward answer. But, and there are all these people that tell you, and there are all these books. I know I said, but it's Monday. There are all these books that tell you, maybe is better than no. And maybe gets you closer to a yes. And I didn't really buy that as much as I do now. Maybe means there's an opportunity to have the discussion, that they haven't closed the door completely. But what's interesting to me is even when someone closes the door completely with the word no, doesn't mean circumstances won't change down the road. I can think of some really important situations in my professional life and in my personal life where no was the answer. And a couple months later, a year later, a couple years later, it wasn't no anymore because circumstances change. And I think we tend to think of no as finality. It's no and it's never going to change. But sometimes I think it can be no for today, for this week, for this month. And who knows what comes in a month or two.
I think we're going to talk about that this week.
Are we? I couldn't remember. So, all right. Well, there's your preview, folks.
Well, it's interesting. I think that I would say that there's books on all sides of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would say getting a no is quote unquote better than getting a maybe. And as you mentioned, that getting a maybe is quote unquote better than getting a no. And I think that either way, I'm going to go back to this. You're going to hate this. Is a judgment.
Oh,
correct?
Yeah.
Because is no really negative? Or is it just a word? And our perception of it, because we're not getting the results that we wanted by the way that we couldn't control. And so we judge it as negative. It's just an answer. And
often, though, the no comes after a lot of hard work. So let's give the scenario. Michael, who we talked about earlier.
Yep.
8.5-year battle with GoPro.
Yes.
He's going to go to court. He's got a suit pending. At the end of the suit, jury, judge, I'm not sure which, is going to say, okay, based on the facts, based on what we interpret, you win or you lose, Michael. If Michael loses, that's getting a no. I don't think he's going to walk out of that courtroom and go, well, I just got an answer. I mean, he's put his entire life into this. You've spoken to him. I've only spoken to him briefly by some comments. This is not a simple no to him. This would be a really huge no. So I think there is some weight to it. Yes, it's just a word. Yes, it's just an answer, but it can also have some power behind it.
It can, the more you let it. No doubt. Here's the other thing. And, and this would be very, it's not easy, not something you want to hear or easy to hear. Yet it does allow him to move forward differently. For 8 years now, he's been, in some ways, and I feel uncomfortable talking about Michael a little bit. Yet, in some ways, it allows him to know that he has done everything he could to try to get the result that he desired. And and now it's completely out of his control. Is it fair? Is it quote unquote right or wrong? Supposedly, as you said, if there are impartial parties making the decision, it is correct based on the legal system. Like I said, doesn't make it, well, I don't like to use the word, it's not right or wrong. It would just be correct by the judges or whoever's decision. And at least, at the minimum, he would know, that he would have an answer. And now maybe there are next steps that he could take. And it might be something that has a significant impact on him. I'm imagining, I know it will. And at least he's not in that land of unsure.
You mean the land of maybe?
Yeah, in some regards.
Well, is it maybe unsure?
Yeah. And so sometimes that clarity has real value. Now, the downside is you don't have the potential of a yes, which, while you're still in the maybe, supposedly, you still have the potential of a yes. And so that's why I think it's a challenging question in some regards, that has value on either side. Especially if we start judging what is the answer and what does that truly mean. And then we get focused on it. And that focus leads us to, a lot of times, frustration. I 100% understand how odd, weird, whatever that reply is. I also think that it's one that may be able to help us keep taking steps towards whatever's next.
Okay. And
we're not buying it.
No, you said earlier you felt bad about talking about Michael. I don't feel bad about talking about Michael because we're not really talking about Michael. We're talking about the situation. It just so happens he has a case, and it is a public case.
Sure.
So I don't feel, and there are many of these cases going on around the country on any given day. Fortunately or unfortunately. And I think as we look at it, I guess here's what it comes down to, Tom. The question we posed this morning in your description was, is no better than maybe? So where do you fall on that?
So as I was looking at it,
I
actually said, I wish I had written that. I wish I had put another title on that. And then I was like, you know what? Actually, now I'm glad that I didn't. because it allowed for the conversation. Because I believe it's not better or worse, it's just different.
Okay.
You're not following that. You're not buying that, huh?
No, because I think, and I'm going to try to say this politely, and I don't mean it as harshly as I think.
You can say it harshly. I'm all right with that.
But I think sometimes you're in a fantasy land that separates emotion from what's going on. And I can tell you, I talked about something before the program with you, that if a certain party says no to me, it's going to really frustrate me a lot. Yes, it'll be finality. Yes, it'll give me clarity. Yes, it'll be all those. I'm not disagreeing, but there's going to be a moment where I go, come on, really? I'm not good enough for whatever. And I think that's a part of this that sometimes I think either you're a master at eliminating your emotions from this, which may be the case, or you've figured out some methodology, but I can't separate the emotion. I know I do sales presentations, and you get the person a week later who goes, Bob, I'm not feeling it. I'm going to go in another direction. I find it really hard when they say no to not have a visceral response, because at its core, no is saying I'm not good enough. There, I said it. Now, I know that's not what it is. I understand that at a very deep intellectual level, but at the level where I'm spending most of my life, a no is a lot more serious to me. In fact, I get more upset about no's than I get excited about yeses.
Okay.
I really do. And I would think most of the people that you come in contact with, no is much more difficult, I think, to deal with than yes. Imagine proposing to someone.
Sure.
Hey, I want to marry you. Here's the ring. You're down on one knee. By the way, this is not happening in my life at all. I want to be absolutely clear about that. You're down on one knee, you're proposing, you've made this decision, you've done all the prep work, and the person says no to you. I don't think you can get up from that and be like, oh, okay, let me stand up. All right, well, let me put the ring back in the drawer and let's go on with our evening. Would you like to get coffee or would you like to go get dinner? I don't think that would be how that would go. I haven't been in that situation. I hope never to be in that situation. But
Sure.
I think that no would be painful to deal with.
It could be, yes. Because you're thinking about the immediate results. You don't have a magic.
Not think of the immediate results. Yes, no,
No.
maybe is all about immediate results.
Correct. Which means you're only focused on the immediate results. To me, in some regards, that says, again, and I'm not saying it's not painful, and I'm not saying that you're not going to have an emotional reaction.
Okay.
Yet we can get stuck in the emotional reaction and feel like it's all about us, and it's not. It's about them. They're not ready for it. They're not feeling the same way that you are. We can't control how someone else feels, reacts, can't. And so we can stay stuck in the emotion of the immediate result, or we can think about what's next, and we don't know what's next. Maybe, again, and this is why results change. How many times have people gotten down on one knee? Somebody said, yeah, they invited them to marry them. They said, yes. Great. Awesome. You got the reaction you wanted. 3 years later, they're miserable. And now the result is different. And what would have happened if the initial result was different? How might things? So we just never know what the future holds. So we get so caught up in what is the immediate response. It's a response. And again, I may be in a fantasy land. Yet I think what it does is it allows me to keep moving forward and allows me to think I can't control the future. I can't control what other people do. And I don't know what's coming in the future more than controlling it. I don't know what's coming based on this result. All I know is I took an action, got a response, and got a result initially. the potential long-term result could change. And how I feel about that action might change, which is why I like to try to think about how do I learn from this rather than spend too much time in the emotion of it.
What's the last big thing that you were disappointed to find out the word no came? Do you remember?
Well, I think it happens all the time.
No. Last big thing.
So, I don't know how you define big. So I'll share.
Big enough that it really upsets you for at least 5 minutes.
Okay. So Saturday,
Okay.
I had a Division I game that I was supposed to do.
Okay.
Drive down there, get ready. We walk out to the field. We do our meetings with coaches and captains. And as they're getting ready to do a senior day thing, because it was senior day, an official I went off to use the bathroom. And as we were walking over there, thunder came. And so we had to go inside and wait. And we waited for 2 hours. And finally, they made the decision because it was a grass field, we couldn't play because of the weather and the conditions of the field. And so they said, we're going to try and play tomorrow. Well, my other two partners weren't available Sunday. I was. Yet, I didn't get the assignment. So part of me is like, well, why? Was I not really good enough? And it was just because there were no other people. And so when it was Sunday and other people were available, they gave it to different officials. So in some ways, they told me no. And yeah, I was bothered by it.
For how long?
I thought about it, I don't know, a decent part of the day yesterday. Not a lot, but a little.
Your tone has shifted as you tell it today. You have a tone of real disappointment.
Because I'm looking back on the way I was feeling. Here's the other thing, though. I got that no, and while there was some disappointment in that, because I was thinking about it all Saturday night, like, why am I not getting this assignment? Why is this not happening? Not all Saturday night, but I was thinking about it. And by getting that no, it allowed me to be able to pick up my wife from the airport. We went out and had a nice breakfast. And I had a relaxing day rather than what would have been, a busy day out on the field running around. And I would have come home probably more tired than I was. And so was that no so awful? Or did it just open up another opportunity for something else that I could have sat around all day and moped about it and wondered? And now some people might say that that's not really that significant.
Sounds like it to you. It was the level of depth. It was deeper than I was expecting, actually.
So I think that's, I think there are things that, sure, they bother us. Yet I could have stayed stuck in it and been frustrated all day long and not enjoyed the day the way I had. So I think that those are the things that happens. Sure, they're emotional. And I think that when we allow our emotions to be stuck in our emotions is when we aren't able to learn and move forward. That we're just caught up in the emotion of the immediate results, even though we don't know what that immediate result could lead to.
I think we're caught up in something else. I think you said it in your explanation of Saturday and how you felt, which is you weren't enough. You weren't good enough to be that official Sunday. You had that thought go through your head at least once. And I think that's what no really says to us. We hear no as, I'm not good enough. And I think that's the part that's often hard to wrestle with. And you're frozen on me. Did I lose you? Oh, you're frozen just as you pulled your drink away.
Oh, okay.
There you are. You're back. But I think that's the hard part, is the whole idea that no is a judgment on who we are as a person. you weren't a good enough official to get that Sunday assignment. For all you know, it was a logistics thing that there just happened to be 3 people right near that school that had spent the night there, and they could have been there in 5 minutes.
Correct. Which is what it was.
What's that?
Which is what happened. The 3 people who ended up on it live within like 10 miles of the place. So in reality,
as someone who does scheduling, makes perfect sense.
And saves me, especially on maybe not on the way down, but on the way back from DC, 2 hours on the way home.
Right.
Easy.
So it made sense. But for a little while, you're not thinking about the sense of it. You're thinking about what it says about you as a person.
Sure.
And I think as a person, I'd rather hear maybe than no. No is you're not enough. Maybe is you might be enough. You're still in the game. No is the time's run out of the game and you lose.
So let me ask you a question. How many times have you said maybe to people?
Countless.
Did you really want to do it? Or was maybe just, it felt easier than saying no?
I think it's 50-50. I think often maybe in my mind is buying more time to think about it because I really don't know. Yes, sometimes it's I don't want to hurt them. I think the discussion you and I were having before the program, frankly, was a maybe because it's getting closer to a no for me on that topic. I think you know that.
Well, and that's just the question is how was I going to say this? I think it would be interesting for you to go back and look at how many times you've said maybe and the end results were no versus how many times you said maybe and the end results were yes. Be curious. It's just an interesting, I don't know that. As I was thinking about it, that would be an interesting thing to consider is, well, here's the thing. And if my kids are listening, Keegan, sorry. A lot of times I said maybe to my kids. And typically I really didn't want to say no. And there was still a possibility that I could do it. Yet it was more likely that we were not going to do it. Although I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. So I think that's the question.
Keegan, I know a good therapist. I can hook you up later today if needed.
Well, here's the thing is I think they probably knew that as well.
Right.
In some way, they held out hope that they could still get, and maybe because enough times we did it, that they were like, oh yeah, it's still possible. And sometimes they probably like, yeah, when I hear maybe, it's like, yeah, that's a no. Might as well be a no.
Okay. All right. So what's your one thing today?
I'm going to stick with it's just different. And it's not better or worse. It's just different. And if we think of it as different, I believe we have the opportunity to move forward because we don't know the long-term results of that response. Again, the long-term response could be more favorable for us than the short term.
Okay.
I'm
going to answer the question with my one thing, which is I think I'd rather hear maybe and have the door be slightly open, slightly ajar. And last Friday I would have told you something different. But this morning I really think that having a little bit of possibility is a good thing. But I'm not that sold on it. I'm really in the middle, and the whole idea of it being different is just annoying the crap out of me.
Well, here's the thing. I think that's for others. It's interesting. So last night we have a family call with our family, and we've been doing this pretty much every Sunday since COVID started. And my niece happened to pop on, and she's not on very often. She's typically away at school and college, and so I said something like, well, there's a big running thing in my family about who should win a game, any sort of athletic contest. My belief is no one should. That's why they play. And it drives my parents nuts and my sisters a little bit. And I sort of do it. And if they're listening, usually my parents say they listen until celebrations and then they move on. So they're probably not listening to this. And I sort of do it because it's one, I want them to think about it, and two, it's a little bit of just nudging. So I said to my niece, I said, you're young, growing, a young adult. So maybe you want to think about not using adjectives because they just lead to judgment. My parents were like, well, how could you not use adjectives? It'd be such a boring conversation. I said, maybe, I don't know. Boring, as you just said, changes your mindset. And so now you believe, because there's no adjectives, that it's boring. It's just a conversation. It's a conversation. And it's just different, not better or worse. And of course, my two sisters were rolling their eyes and shaking their head. And I, tried to explain it. And of course oh boy, here he goes again. And so I just think that it's not where we want to live. We want to be able to have that emotion. I think that's the thing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think the challenge is, as much as we want it, we don't always want it to last if it's not what we desire. And then we're stuck in either we got what we desired, it's awesome, the emotion's great, and we just stay in that for likely maybe longer than is beneficial. We get stuck there, or we get stuck on the other side of it, thinking that no is negative and that it's about me. And it's hard then to move forward and figure out what to do next. So I can see why different would drive you nuts. And some of that is, again, just like with my family. Yes, it drives you nuts. And I hope that it makes people give a pause and think for a moment of how we judge so many things. And does that really provide us the value we think it does?
Okay, well, I think that's a good place to leave things for today. We will be back tomorrow, folks, for more on this. I have a feeling the discussion around no is going to be an interesting one all week. And it's good that Tom and I are not in the same building today, because I'd be trying to yell at him a little more, but we'll keep it polite for now.
We could. All right, everyone. And you know what? It's okay for it to be a conversation. It's just a different conversation.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us. If you have one thing you'd like to share, please feel free to put it in the comments, because we know that there might be somebody out there who hasn't heard it the way you were going to share it, and that value may have a significant impact on them and help them figure out how to take their next step. If you happen to be listening to the podcast, we know that there's no place to share your thoughts or ideas, so please join us inside our Ring of Renegades Facebook group, where you can share your thoughts and ideas in there with others. And while you're there, you might find something that might be of value to you as well. So we look forward to seeing you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. If not, we'll see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m.-ish, for our next episode of Today's Antidote.
Hey, embrace the renegading you. Even if you get no, even if you get maybe, or if you get yes, embrace the renegading you. It's so worth it.
It is. All right, everyone, go out and enjoy your day. We'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to Today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.